Daisy. ABDLstream is brought to you today by the letter E. E. Eh. Like elephant, you know. Our lovely patrons, John and David Cook. And from viewers like you. Thank you. Hey! Hey, kiddos. How's it going? You doing okay? You having a nice day? I hope things are going super well in your neck of the woods, wherever they may be. Today, we're gonna read a story together. I'm going to reread Understand, and mostly just because I wanted to make sure we got all of our stories covered before we got into some new stuff, you know? Oh, but what's it called? This story is a little, maybe this is your content warning, I guess. This story is a little steamy. So, fair warning. There's definitely some steamy action, I guess. But it is all ABDL themed. Or I guess diaper themed, yeah. So maybe more on the, like, DL side than the AB side, I guess. Oh. But before we begin, we have to see about some things. If you want to engage with this stream, you have 2 ways you can do that. 2 ways. 2 whole ways. You can either use the chat on Picarto. Yeah, I can see you typing out all of your dreams and stuff, letting me know everything. Yeah. Is this chatting? Is this what chatting looks like? This is like playing a piano. Or becoming a dinosaur. Rah, rah. Like people are saying, have a good day. I am having a good day. Today's gonna be very fun. I'm very excited about it. Yeah! Let's jump on over to Twitter. You can use the hashtag ABDLstream in order to call in, talk to the show? I don't know. Let's see. Anybody use it? Anybody bring anything up? Haters? Nada. It's okay. Someday we'll get there. Someday! Okay. So, why don't we get ready for Understand. This is a story about some exercising folk. And before we get into it, I wanted to explain maybe a little bit about where this story came from. As in, I did write it, and I wanted to explain like some of my thoughts behind it. So this story started out from a post on Tumblr, I guess. You may have to like dig back quite a while in my post history to find it, But there was one day when I went running and it started raining and it was really, really wet and crazy outside. And I had this really big problem while I was there. I can show you. What's it called? This is like some of my athletic clothes. I can still fit into it from then too. I'm happy about that. And I was around the same weight. I'm in like the 130s, I think. And what's it called? The clothes in question were they're like a little loose because they're athletic wear. You know, you don't just go jogging and then just like be in skin tight clothes if you wear diapers like I do. Yeah, it's like if you wear diapers, skin tight is generally not your friend. So I try to wear loose clothing, you know? So this time, what I ended up doing is I just went out with this and I thought it was fine. But let me show you. I'll show you what happened. Let me set this down. Ugh. Let's scoot this over. Okay. So, this seems fine, right? You know, a little bit peeking out the top, but nothing crazy. Like, this is manageable. I can manage with this, you would think. Well, let me show you what happened. So, we're going walking, right? Just walking around, going in style. Nothing crazy. I'm going down the walking trail, doing all my exercise. And I'm like, okay, well this is fine. Why don't we try doing a light jog, like a nice little run? That won't be too hard. So I'm all set. I get everything all set. Let's go. Let's jog. Right? No problem so far. This isn't too bad. And then I realized something. I hear this like, well, I don't even hear it. I feel like this little pop on like my pants, and I was like, that's probably just like me running into like, I don't know, a branch or something. Little did I realize, the longer that I ran, the more my elastic broke. Yeah. And so there we are. It was very annoying. Very, very annoying. I was really sad about it too. Because like, I was like, man, I liked these shorts. These were very comfy shorts. Now they don't work. And so yeah, I was running and my shorts just completely disintegrated. So I had to run back home just like with them hiked up around my sides, just trying to get home. I was very sad. I was very, very sad about that. So I ended up having to get new ones eventually. And these ones, maybe I should get rid of them at some point, but they mean a lot. Anyway, so that was the explanation of this story. That is where all of this story kind of got derived from. And it was raining that day. Like, that was the day I got stuck in the rain and all that. So, it's, quite a memory. Anyway, why don't we go ahead and get into this? So, this story, Understand, was written by me. And, I also, what's it called? You know, when you, I can't remember. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Oh, it has 6 chapters. Like, there's 5 regular chapters and then 1 little epilogue chapter. So we're gonna read through it all today together. If that's okay. Yeah. Okay, let's get going! And, if there are any, like, what's it called? Any, like, chats or anything, I'll read them in between the chapters. Okay, here we go! Okay, Okay, this is Understand? Understand! By Peter Chance. This is Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Wow. Okay. So this is... Here we go. Let's get some music going, too. Hold on. Gonna turn this off for a second. Get this one turned on. Should be okay. Hopefully no double audio this time. Fingers crossed. Here we go. This is Understand. Play. There we go. Okay. One more set, Lindsay said as she and Kevin passed the entryway of the jogging track. We're just under 5 miles. The corner gym was spacious enough to have its own indoor running path, which was useful on hot summer days like this. Kevin panted as he followed his high school friend around the rubber path, passing other people exercising nearby. The college student was barely managing to keep pace with his former classmate, but it was obvious that Lindsay was dialing it back so that way Kevin wouldn't get left too far behind. Despite his toned stature, the young man's stamina was lacking. Lindsay's dyed blue ponytail bobbed back and forth as she slowed down to a jog and exited the track with Kevin padding behind. The young man had to put his hands on his knees as he tried to catch his breath. It had been a week since Lindsay had invited him to go to the gym together, and he was feeling the effects of the lack of exercise. The young woman smirked with pride over outrunning her workout partner, but was quickly distracted as someone walked up nearby. "Hey, long time no see," the young woman said as she walked out of Kevin's view. Kevin turned and saw her approach a dark-skinned young man with a small towel around his neck. His orange and white shirt was soaked with sweat, and his sneakers were well worn. "Hey, stranger," the newcomer greeted. "How have you been?" "Pretty good," Lindsay said as she motioned for Kevin to join them. "I have a new workout buddy, Kevin." "Oh, Kevin, this is Yuri. We had a class together in sophomore year." "Nice to meet you, Kevin," said the man as he stretched out his hand for a handshake. "My name's Uriah, but I prefer Yuri." Kevin shook his hand and was slightly intimidated by Yuri's tight grip. The ginger-haired boy squeezed back accordingly, earning a tighter grip from the other man. As if boxers in an arena, the two held their gaze and began to tighten their grips even more. It wasn't until Lindsay rolled her eyes and stuck out her hand to break their concentration that they let go. "You guys are morons," the 23-year-old said as she put her hands on her hips. "I was gonna ask you, Yuri, if you wanted to join us while we work out. I'm not up for any attitude from you two, though." "It won't be a problem," Yuri clucked while shaking his hand slightly. "We'll be on our best behavior. Right, Kevin?" Placing his stinging hand behind his back, Kevin nodded and waved his fingers around to avoid Yuri's attention. Right. What'd you have in mind, Lindsay?" "How about some squats?" she asked while pointing a thumb at an empty power rack. "Great!" exclaimed Yuri. "We can see who can squat the most." "You're on," Kevin said with a grin. He wasn't planning to lose with Lindsay watching. The trio walked over to the power rack and picked up a metal bar while placing some weights on either side. Yuri opted to go first and easily lifted the bar onto his shoulders. Lindsay and Kevin counted as they watched the young man lower himself into position and stand back upright. Sweat began to bead on Yuri's brow as his muscles ripped as he continued to Sweat began to bead on Yuri's eyebrow, and his muscles rippled as he continued the process. Kevin noticed a bulge between the student's legs, but quickly looked away. He felt a slight curiosity towards the shape within Yuri's basketball shorts, but he was too worried about being caught staring to take another glance. 24, 25, 26, Yuri counted before setting the bar back onto the rack. "Beat that." As the black boy walked over and wiped his forehead with his towel, Kevin stepped over to the bar and picked it up. The weights on either end were a bit more than he was used to, but his resolve to outdo Yuri and Lindsay was driving him. The young man slowly began his reps, now fully feeling the toll that the earlier jog had taken on his legs. Kevin huffed and puffed his way through 15 squats before realizing that he was losing grip on the bar. He gave a panicked yelp as he slipped to the left, causing the bar to fall onto the power rack with a loud metallic clang. "Are you okay?" Lindsay asked as Kevin groaned from the floor. Yuri and Lindsay picked up the bar and weights from the railing behind their fallen friend. Kevin sat up, thoroughly embarrassed as he realized the other gym-goers were staring at him from across the room. With his face tomato red, he stood up and dusted himself off. "Don't push yourself so hard," Lindsay gently reprimanded, while taking her place in the power rack. "You did really good." Kevin sighed and felt a pang of annoyance as Yuri gave him a confident smirk. The older boy was clearly stronger than Kevin, which only strengthened his drive to beat his rival. Yuri and Kevin watched passively as Lindsay surpassed Kevin's score of 15 and continued onwards. The young men were clearly feeling a sense of rivalry between themselves, but respect for their partner's concentration kept them at bay. As Kevin silently pouted at his loss, Lindsay's score climbed higher and higher until she reached 25. Yuri's eyes widened as Lindsay squatted down again and again, her face flushing now. 33, 34, 35, Lindsay strained from before standing up and walking the bar over to the rack. "Looks like I managed to take you both down." After setting the metal bar down, the young woman sauntered in between her college friends and with a very proud grin on her face. Yuri and Kevin looked a bit bashful as Lindsay took a sip of water from her water bottle. "Sounds like you'll have to train to beat me together," she teased. "I have to head home now, though. It's getting late." "See you around," Yuri said with a wave. He had clearly been wrong to underestimate her. Kevin waved goodbye and sighed as Lindsay turned around and walked out of the weight room. He glanced over at Yuri, who flashed a grin and scratched the short black hair on his head. "I forgot how tough she is," the taller boy noted, making sure that she was out of earshot. Kevin lamented, "It just means we'll have to train harder to keep up." "You're right." A sheepish look suddenly crawled across Yuri's face, catching the other student's attention. "What?" asked Kevin. If you're not busy," Yuri began, "we could work out sometime. I think Lindsay was right about us training together." Kevin blinked in surprise at the offer, but didn't say anything for a bit. The loss against Yuri and Lindsay had hurt his pride, but the opportunity to work out with the stronger man was enticing. He couldn't quite place his interest in Yuri yet, but he knew something made him trust the man and he wanted to stick around. "I guess it couldn't hurt," replied the ginger. Yuri's dark brown eyes seemed to give him an abrupt look, as if he would said something what he had said was unexpected. He adjusted his shirt and gave a chuckle. "All right, how about we meet up at Pass Park on Thursday? It's pretty close from here." Kevin nodded in agreement. "That sounds good to me." Yuri fist bumped his new workout buddy and jabbed a thumb towards the exit. "I'm gonna hit the showers. It's already 9:30. The clock on the wall read 9:32, much later than Kevin had intended to stay. "Shoot, I need to head out too. I have a class tomorrow at 7. Yuri and Kevin quickly made sure that their weights and bars were all in the proper places before heading towards the men's locker room. The tiled floors and white walls made the room feel almost blinding with fluorescent lights above. A man tying his shoes sat on a bench nearby before passing Kevin on the way out. Yuri stepped into a bathroom stall, leaving Kevin to walk into the communal showers alone. The 22-year-old used the opportunity to strip off his sweat-covered shirt and shorts, and then set them in a pile on one of the benches. Kevin stretched his muscular arms above his head as he began to feel slightly sore from his earlier fall. Choosing to ignore the pain, he pulled off his shoes and socks, which left him standing in a black and red jockstrap. His green eyes looked exhausted as he opened a locker and pulled out a towel with a football team's logo emblazoned on the front. He set it on the bench, slipped out of his underwear, and headed towards the showers. A row of shower heads and metal buttons sat on the walls of the bathing area, making the already tiled floor and walls seem even brighter. Kevin pushed one of the buttons on the wall and gave a sigh of relief as warm water began to come out of the pipes. Lost my place. There he is. He splashed his face a few times before hearing an odd noise garbled by the water. The empty room seemed to echo a bit with the sound of tape ripping, but he chose to ignore it. Water washed over him, making the sweat and grime of the day slip down into the drain towards the middle of the room. As he wiped down his abs and his thighs, he was startled by footsteps nearby. Yuri, now fully naked, walked into the showering area and pushed a button on the wall a few showers away. The young man silently began to wash his body as water poured from the spigot above, quietly humming to himself. Kevin felt a pang of curiosity as he continued to scrub at his own physique. Trying not to be conscious, he peeked over at Yuri, who was now turned away from Kevin. The man's toned back and ass were in full view as he watched himself. Kevin felt his ears begin to burn red, but immediately turned away when Yuri faced the shower head again. An odd sensation filled Kevin's chest as he looked down at his feet within the shower. His heart was beginning to pound a bit faster. He sneaked another glance at Yuri, who seemed to be unaware that his workout buddy was watching his every move. His eyes passed over the black man's defined pecs and abs, drifting down further to his thighs and his crotch. Kevin felt a little bit of panic as he realized that his own privates were beginning to chub up and decided to quickly turn off the shower before Yuri could notice. Kevin speed-walked back to the living room and dried himself off as fast as he could. What's going on with me? Straight guys don't check out their exercise partners, he thought as he pulled out a change of clothes from his bag. He quickly tossed his dirty items and sat on the bench. Kevin had slipped into a clean set of boxer briefs, shorts, and a polo shirt before realizing that Yuri was already out of the shower and halfway clothed. He was nonchalantly pulling on his shirt when Kevin broke the silence. So, I'll see you on Thursday, he stammered. Yuri absently nodded as Kevin silently kicked himself. The ginger cringed as he tied up his shoes and picked up his bag and towel. As he headed out of the locker room, Yuri gave the young man a smile and a wave goodbye. Stupid, Kevin thought as he walked out of the gym. Lindsay and Yuri probably think that I'm an utter moron, and spying on Yuri just makes me a creep. That just makes me a creepy moron! The college student drove home and immediately flopped into bed once he arrived at his dorm. His roommate was gone, allowing him to have a private moment. As he laid on his mattress in just his boxers, he tried to forget the awkward interaction with Yuri. Unfortunately for Kevin, the fellow student kept drifting into his thoughts. Yuri's constant smirk and friendly rivalry that they shared were making him feel slightly off-kilter. Kevin could feel his erection tenting in his boxers, making him feel more confused than ever. Trying to ignore his heart's frenzied beating, he took a deep breath. Kevin had always liked girls. He had been on dates, he had had sex, he had previous close relationships with them, but something about Yuri was making him feel a little different. His erection continued to grow as he remembered how Yuri looked while in the shower. The muscular pecs, his toned abs, that nice ass. Kevin found himself pulling his dick out of his underwear and stroking himself. He closed his eyes and remembered Yuri helping him out with the metal bar and weights after he fell. The horny student bit his lip as he recalled the feeling of Yuri's rough hands squeezing onto his palms. Kevin let out a moan as he felt himself building to a climax. Stroking faster and faster, he let out a gasp as cum splattered onto his chest. Kevin took a few deep breaths as he resigned himself to exhaustion. Still coming off of his high, he realized that there was no way he would be processing his feelings that night. The ginger carefully wiped himself off with some tissues on his bedstand and tossed them into the trash. As he closed his eyes to fall asleep, Kevin let out a long sigh. He just didn't understand. Oh. Like I said, the story's a little steamier than the last one. Hold on. I have this big water bottle that I sometimes use. I'm very prone to spilling it. I try not to use it because, like I would have, like, a giant thing down my shirt if I didn't use this. A giant wet mark. Okay. Let's jump to chapter 2. This is chapter 2. There we go. Shivers ran down Kevin's spine as he walked from the parking lot area towards the entrance of a jogging trail. A beat-up car had been parked in the lot, signaling that Yuri was already probably at the trail. Tree leaves rustled loudly in the breeze, covered only by a long yawn from the young man's mouth. The sky above was still fairly dark, and at the insistence of Yuri, the two had agreed to meet early in the morning in order to finish their exercises before classes. The loss of sleep slightly annoyed Kevin, but he decided to suck it up in order to get the training session over with. Sure enough, Yuri was stretching his legs on the grass by a painted sign that read, "Pass Park Trail," wearing a t-shirt and another set of loose basketball shorts. A white sweatband was on his wrist. A white sweatband was on his wrist, which matched his sneakers. As Kevin stepped closer, he felt a bit concerned about his own attire. His dark green compression shirt and shorts left little to the imagination, but he was aiming to impress. Or at least show Yuri that he wasn't completely incompetent with exercise. Upon hearing the footsteps on the jogging path, Yuri spun around and gave Kevin a friendly wave. He easily picked himself off the ground and joined his friend on the concrete. "I was worried you weren't gonna show," Yuri teased. "Why, you need someone to hold your hand down the trail?" Yuri scoffed and crossed his arms. "You'll be needing someone to hold your hand when I leave you in the dust." "Wanna bet?" the younger man playfully challenged. Sure. Why would I not take a bet that I know I'm gonna win?" The confidence Yuri threw at Kevin didn't seem to faze him. "First one to the end of the trail, then?" "Oh, you're on," Yuri chuckled. "Just don't go crying to mommy when you lose, okay?" Kevin gritted his teeth and made his way to the starting point of the trail. Yuri joined him with a smirk on his face, knowing that he was managing to press the young man's buttons. The two stood for a few seconds and got into position before Kevin counted them down. 3, 2, 1, go! The boys dashed down the pavement side by side at a frenzied pace. At first, Kevin took the lead by a few feet. He could feel the wind whipping between his legs as he ran, giving Yuri a view of his backside. The tight green fabric did little to hide the ginger's pert bottom. Kevin and Yuri darted past the greenery and old benches along the path, their footsteps smacking against the concrete. A few minutes in, and Kevin could feel his pace beginning to slow, as his stamina was quickly ebbing away. Yuri's breaths began to get closer and closer behind him, causing Kevin to lose concentration and slow down even more. A yellow shirt and blue shorts flashed through his vision as Yuri overtook him and kept going. Not wanting to give up so easily, Kevin found himself chasing after the young man, but was just outpaced. He stared at Yuri's back as he ran and noticed something a bit odd. As the hem of Yuri's shirt fluttered behind him, Kevin could see something poking out from the back of his shorts. The shorter boy squinted his eyes and blinked with confusion, as what appeared to be a flimsy white plastic ran just above Yuri's backside. It was then that he noticed that Yuri's butt in general seemed to have something around it, almost as if he was wearing another set of shorts or some really thick underwear. Kevin's thoughts were brought to an immediate halt as he crashed into Yuri, who had suddenly stopped. The two college students gave a cry as they slammed to the ground with a thud. In a tangle of legs and arms, Kevin and Yuri tried to pull away from each other. Watch where you're going, Yuri warned before snatching down the back of his shirt and adjusting his shorts. He noticed that Kevin was staring at his rear and seemed to have an inquisitive expression on his face. Yuri inwardly groaned. Got something to ask? The black man asked with a slightly more annoyed tone. Kevin shifted his gaze and felt his ears turning red. Nope. If you're sure, Yuri said, as he got up back on his feet. He offered an outstretched hand to Kevin in order to help him up, but his gaze caught something else. Kevin's compression shorts seemed to have a large bulge in the crotch area. Realizing where Yuri was standing, the young man futilely tried to block his view with his remaining hand. Kevin could tell that his face was burning red and tears were beginning to form around the edges of his eyes. Are you okay? Yuri asked. Yeah, Kevin lied as he stood up and wiped his face. Kevin, you've been acting really weird ever since we started running. Is there something wrong? The shorter boy tried to find words to say, but all that came out was a babbling mess. He wanted to ask about what he had noticed while they were running, but he didn't want to come off as rude. What would he do if he accidentally crossed a line? What if Yuri refused to hang out with him ever again? Are you mad that you couldn't keep up, and are you mad that Are you mad that you couldn't keep up? Did I do something to hurt you? Kevin shook his head adamantly. His gaze drifted back down to Yuri's crotch and then to his feet. Yuri sighed and slipped his thumbs into his waistband of his basketball shorts. Without so much as a warning, he slid the shorts down to his ankles. The diaper was taped around his waist, with vertical yellow and blue lines going from the front to the back. Kevin could see that the lowest point of the diaper between Yuri's legs was heavily tinted yellow, and that the lines faded as they got further towards the back of the diaper. Yuri looked away with a pouting face. I have to wear diapers, Kev, Yuri stated as he lifted the hem of his shirt. The top of his diaper appeared to be wet with sweat from their workout. Oh. Yuri glanced back at Kevin and then back at the trail. Thankfully, there didn't seem to be anyone else around at all. I have athletic incontinence, the man continued. My doctor says it's more common than you think. I didn't want to make a big deal about this, but you were acting like I was hiding something serious. Kevin took a deep breath and apologized. Sorry, man, I should have just been upfront about this. I actually noticed it while we were working out at the gym, but I didn't know how to ask. Well, now you know, nosy, Yuri chided, while pulling his shorts back up to his waist. He crossed his arms and faced Kevin. Now, is there anything you've been hiding from me? The ginger man opened his mouth, but then immediately closed it and shook his head. Yuri raised one of his eyebrows, but didn't push the question. Alright, Yuri noted. Your body is telling me that you're lying, but I won't bring it up if you don't want me to. Kevin looked down to see that his dick was clearly outlined and was practically standing at attention in his shorts. His hands flew to his crotch as he mumbled another apology. Yuri chuckled and walked past him, giving his workout buddy a sharp slap on the ass before stepping back into a running stance on the concrete path. Come on, Yuri shouted. I'll race you back. I'll even give you a head start this time. The younger man adjusted his shorts and jogged over to where Yuri stood. Glad that their conversation earlier wouldn't have turned them from bantering back and forth. 1, 2, 3, Kevin shouted as he suddenly dashed ahead past Yuri. Hey, the other man yelled. That's cheating! You said you'd give me a head start, Kevin laughed as Yuri chased him with a goofy grin. Oh, you're on! Wow. That was part 2. How we doing so far? Doing okay? get through part 3 together. Okay. Gray clouds rumbled across the sky as Kevin and Yuri jogged their way up the trail on their 12th workout session. The air was thick with humidity, but the college's radio station had predicted sunny skies on their weekly forecast. The young men each gave each other a nervous glance as they watched the bolt of lightning shoot across the sky in the distance, followed by the booming of thunder. Oh, wait. I was gonna do this. There we go. Followed by the booming of thunder. There we go. Well, it was only 4 in the afternoon. Thick coverage of clouds made it look almost like sundown. The pair was about halfway through their trek down the jogging trail, which put them at the furthest point of the car lot as possible. Kevin noticed that Yuri was picking up the pace, so he did his best to match his friend's footwork. Sprinkles of rain pattered on the pavement, slowly covering the concrete with tiny dark spots. Kevin winced as he felt drops of water hit him in the face. Yuri continued to run ahead, but even he couldn't outrace the storm behind them. Within seconds, rain began to pour from the heavens and easily drenched the two runners. "Shit!" Yuri shouted as the downpour continued to get worse and worse. Thunder and lightning drowned out Kevin's yells from behind, and trees on either side of the trail whipped back and forth violently. Yuri and Kevin broke into a dead sprint as they raced back into the parking lot, but the downburst seemed to try to do everything in its power to slow them. Splashing through large puddles, the two found themselves being forced to slow down as their soaked clothes began to cling to their skin. Yuri tugged desperately at his basketball shorts as they threatened to slip from his waist, and the added water weight and smooth surface of his diaper. Kevin wasn't much luckier as he skidded on a pile of mud and lost his balance. The ginger yelped as he hit the ground hard. "Kevin!" his partner gasped as he heard the young man fall to the ground. Skidding to a stop, Yuri spun around and pulled Kevin to his feet as the rain worsened. A group of streetlights at the end of the jogging trail could be seen shining in the distance, still a good mile away. "We have to get out of here!" Kevin cried over the flash of lightning. "I know!" Yuri yelled. "We're almost there!" Turning back to the trail, the two ran side by side through the heavy rain towards the lights. The sky continued to darken, making what was already hard to see even harder. Holding up their jogging shorts, Yuri and Kevin managed to struggle their way out of the trail and into the parking lot. The pair darted in for Yuri's car as they sloshed through puddles and water pooling at the edge of the parking lot. Yuri quickly unlocked the vehicle and the boys jumped inside. "Holy fuck!" gasped Kevin. The ginger boy yanked a seatbelt around his chest as Yuri turned on the car and drove out of the parking lot. The young men shivered as they sat in their car seats, dripping with water and sweat. Even with his windshield wipers swinging back and forth at the highest setting, Yuri was forced to drive at a snail's pace due to the heavy rains. As they managed to get out of the park and into town, the pair were horrified to find out that the road towards the college was blocked off with police cars and barricades. A flood of water had completely obstructed the street, causing a line of cars to be turned around by police officers in reflective raincoats. "Shit," Kevin whispered. "How am I gonna get back to the dorms now?" Yuri groaned and leaned his head back against the driver's seat. His eyes closed in frustration, before an idea popped into his head. Kevin watched as Yuri quickly reversed his car and began driving in the opposite direction. "Where are we going?" asked the junior. Yuri kept his eyes on the road and simply said, "My house." Kevin opened his mouth to protest, but he was cut off by his partner. "The weather is too bad and the roads are too dangerous to get to campus, Kevin. Besides, it'll just be until we figure out how to get you home safely." "Are you sure?" Yuri nodded. "My roommate is at his girlfriend's house anyways, so we'll be able to rest there. It's not exactly the cleanest at the moment though, so I'll apologize in advance." The car slowly made its way through the storm before arriving at an apartment complex 15 minutes later. Yuri parked the car under an empty awning and opened the door. The rain seemingly refused to let up, which caused runoff water on the asphalt to come up to the young man's ankles. Kevin followed his friend out of the car before slamming it shut and running towards the set of stairs. Still thoroughly soaked, Yuri and Kevin rushed towards an apartment at the top of the concrete landing, swung open the door, and immediately hurried inside. Kevin glanced around at the room, at all the wooden paneling on the walls, and the beige carpet underfoot. A battered love seat sat in front of a fairly modern television, with a bookshelf filled with movies and video games on the right. A coffee table in front of the seat had a television remote, a few cans of beer, and a set of game controllers perched on top, the latter of which were plugged into a console. Yuri slipped off his shoes and picked up the television remote before navigating to a weather forecast. "Downpour will last late into tonight," a weatherman explained while pointing at a colorful map green screen behind him. "The police have asked everybody to stay indoors. Flash flooding has caused the road from Everson towards Everson College to be completely blocked, and we have reports of flooding near Lake Bardwell." "Jesus Christ," Kevin muttered as he untied his jogging sneakers. "It looks horrible." You're gonna have to stay the night, bro," Yuri said as he pointed at the television screen and pulled out a towel from a cabinet on the other side of the room. "Thanks, man," Kevin said as Yuri tossed him one of the towels. "You sure it's okay?" "It's no problem." Yuri paused and seemed to get an unsure expression on his face. Do you need to take a shower?" he asked. Kevin looked down at his soaked clothes and realized that the workout had left him smelling worse for wear. Yeah, that might be for the best." Yuri pointed a thumb towards another room. "The bathroom's in the middle. Just turn the knob to the right for warmer water. You can borrow some of my clothes when you get out." Kevin nodded, walked into the bathroom with the towel in his hands, and closed the door behind him. Adrenaline from the escape through the rain was beginning to wear off, and made the young man feel more and more exhausted. The ginger struggled to pull off his soaked shirt from his body and slid off the shorts and socks before checking himself out in a wall mirror above the sink. Kevin's knee looked fairly scraped up, but otherwise he just looked tired. His black brief soon joined a pile of soggy clothing as he hopped into the shower. Relief swept over Kevin as warm water sprayed from the shower head. After being stuck in a cold car while soaking wet, the heat provided a welcome change. The young man picked up a bar of soap and gave himself a quick lather before rinsing himself off and turning the spigot. Kevin picked up the towel that he had been given and dried it off before tying it around his waist and leaving the bathroom with his wet clothes in his arms. When he walked back into the main room, he was met with Yuri sitting on the love seat with a case of beers on the coffee table. "I figured we could use some help winding down," Yuri said with a shrug as he stood up. "You can help yourself. Put the clothes in the dryer over there and then choose a movie." The host picked up his own towel and stepped into the bathroom, making sure to lock the door behind him. Kevin placed his clothes in the dryer and walked back over to the bookshelves filled with movie cases. He glanced through the list of names, noting a large amount of action movies and spy thrillers lined up neatly in a row. The young man skimmed over a few names that he recognized before he picked out one of the films and set it up on the television. Had he been looking a little bit closer, Kevin would have been surprised by the plethora of children's movies sitting on the bottom shelf. Rain pounded loudly on the roof as Kevin maneuvered a menu screen with a plastic remote, skipping previews and teasers for movies that had been released decades ago. He barely heard the shower turn off and the bathroom door creak open. Yuri, with the towel wrapped around his waist, came out and added his soaked clothes into the dryer with Kevin's. With a twist of the knob, the machine rattled to life. The young man tossed something into a garbage can before walking back into his room. "Did you choose something?" Yuri called from his bedroom. "Yeah, Die Hard." Kevin heard the sound of plastic crinkling, followed by a drawer opening and closing. After he pressed play on the remote, Yuri came back into the room wearing pajamas and holding another set in his hands. Kevin snorted as he realized both sets of sleepwear had childish patterns that included video game characters. This is all I had that was clean, okay? Yuri stated defensively. Sure. Yuri took a seat on the sofa as Kevin picked up the pajamas and pulled on the colorful sweater. The towel on his waist came loose and hit the ground, leaving him standing half naked in the living room. Unfazed, Kevin flipped through the pajama pants and was dismayed to find a pair of tidy whities staring back at him. Seriously? He asked. You're missing the movie, Yuri chuckled. Besides, they're comfy. Easy for you to say, pouted Kevin while slipping them on. Yuri picked up one of the cans of beer and popped it open while watching Kevin pull on the pair of sweats. After taking a large swig, he offered another can to Kevin. The college students easily downed the beers and found themselves drinking more and more cans. Kevin hiccuped and lightly leaned against Yuri as he took more sips of beer. Oh, we need water, the black young man said as he offered to get up, but Kevin dragged him back down to the love seat. The movie's getting good, though, Kevin complained, his words slightly slurring together. Robbers filled the television screen as they hijacked a party, causing Yuri to reluctantly sit back down. The noise of guns firing prompted Kevin to drink another beer and lean closer to Yuri, inebriated with... The workout buddies slowly rested against the back of the love seat as they became more and more inebriated with cans of beer. Yuri shifted his weight, causing the diaper under his pajamas to loudly crinkle. Kevin didn't react as the taller boy felt his padding become more and more soaked, and the faint sound of pee filling the diaper could barely be heard above the movie's audio. In fact, the college student seemed to take Yuri's movement as an opportunity to wrap a hand around his shoulder. You smell nice, Kevin drunkenly stated. Yuri rolled his eyes and sighed as he realized that the young man was getting far too in over his head. He noticed a pee stain beginning to develop around Kevin's crotch, forcing Yuri to get up off of the love seat and take action. By the time Yuri returned to the sofa with a diaper in his hand, Kevin had fallen fast asleep. Warmth. Kevin groggily raised his head and feebly moved his arms as he felt a warm blanket swaddling his body. The young man could feel the soft fabric of Yuri's pajamas on his upper body, but his legs felt oddly cool and exposed. The rough texture of the couch was no longer near, instead replaced by the plush feeling of a mattress and a comforter. He attempted to roll over, but something held him firmly in place where he lay. Kevin's head swam as he moved his gaze towards his feet. A pair of muscular arms was held around his waist. Their dark complexion looked familiar, unlike the clothing around his midsection. Where a pair of tidy whities and infantile sweats had been the previous night, a diaper with the colorful cartoon animals emblazoned on the front now sat. Kevin was stunned to feel the wet and sticky contents around his private parts. His eyes returned back to the arms and realized that he was being held by a sleeping Yuri. The sweatpants his workout partner had worn were also gone, revealing that both boys were wearing thoroughly soaked diapers. Kevin let out a quiet whimper and closed his eyes, unsure of what to do. Whoa. That must be a scary feeling, waking up in someone's bed like that. I haven't done that, so, you know. Yes. Also, yes. I dressed up for today. Animal padding. Yeah. Let's keep going. That was halfway. We have 3 more chapters left. This is chapter 4. Let's get started. It rained. We came here. Then what? Kevin tried to retrace his steps in his mind over and over again, but he came up blank every single time. Where's my cursor? There's my cursor. Sorry, I got stuck. He felt panic set in as he realized that less and less began to make sense. Something about beer. Something about towels. Something about Christmas? Kevin's head swam with seemingly unrelated thoughts. What the hell happened last night? Yuri's arms pulled his workout buddy closer to his chest, as if Kevin was a teddy bear. His athletic stature made it impossible for the college student to squirm away, or even turn around. Kevin had considered waking his friend, but something stopped him. The young man closed his eyes, and then leaned his back into Yuri's chest, feeling the defined muscles behind him. As Kevin slowed his breathing, the hug began to feel less like a problem and more like something he had been secretly wanting. The hug slightly tightened, and Kevin felt all of the fight drain out of himself, replaced with longing. Kevin bit his lip and tried to fight off the feeling of a crush that seemed to be developing faster than he'd like to admit. Perhaps it was the beer or the physical attention he was receiving, but something about Yuri's hug made the young man feel safe and protected. It wasn't until he felt a pang in his bladder that Kevin took a sharp breath. The longer that he laid intertwined with the 23-year-old, the more he wanted to stay like this. But the drinking from the previous night had clearly been his own fault. He tried to think of where the diaper had come into play. He could remember that Yuri wore a diaper when they worked out, but there was no recollection of him being on the receiving end of a change. Kevin winced as he felt the pressure in his bladder continue to build within Yuri's grasp. As he tried to clutch at his dick through the padding. This caused the already squishy insides to shift around his privates, eliciting an erotic moan. Kevin's hand flew to his mouth, but the damage had already been done. Yuri roused from his slumber upon hearing the lewd moaning and held Kevin against his chest. Did someone like that? He whispered into Kevin's ear from behind. The taller boy moved his arms, one applying pressure on Kevin's bladder, while the other began to rub the front of his diaper. Kevin panted as his arousal became more evident. Yuri teasingly spread the young man's legs with his own, and nuzzled his face into the back of his friend's neck. A lick to Kevin's ear sent electric shivers down his spine, and he felt himself needing to press his diaper-covered backside into Yuri's padding. Please, Kevin moaned. I need to... To what? Yuri asked playfully. To go... to... the bathroom, stuttered Kevin as Yuri's hands continued to explore his body. Oh, really? I think you already have everything you need right here. Kevin let out a whine as Yuri patted the front of his diaper again. Besides, Yuri continued, the body is just for big boys. The ginger shut his eyes and gasped as the urgency in his bladder doubled. His legs began to quake and the need for release was becoming more than he could handle. Yuri slid a hand up Kevin's pajamas shirt and gave his nipple a pinch. The shorter boy immediately let out a wail of defeat as he felt the dam break. Urine flooded his diaper while Yuri hugged him from behind and kissed his neck. Kevin's tongue lolled out of his mouth as ecstasy filled his body and arousal took over. He felt himself instinctively grinding backwards on Yuri, who was clearly getting into the groove as well. Kevin turned his head towards the college student and was met with a sloppy, wet kiss. The two men explored each other's mouths with their tongues, the lingering taste of beer still on their lips. Yuri fondled Kevin's package and chest as he humped his own erection into the back of his buddy's diaper, causing the shorter boy to mewl with erotic affection. The pair only broke their kiss when Kevin felt a sharp smack to the back of his thigh and let out a needy whine. Turned down by the vocal boy between his legs, Yuri eagerly flipped Kevin over so that his back was against the bed. Before he could react, the taller boy grabbed his ankles and spread them so he could comfortably sit in between them. Kevin's green eyes widened as Yuri leaned over his body and let the fronts of their padding touch before pushing their crotches together in a frenzy. The squishy insides of their diapers made the already sensitive penises further erect as they humped each other to a near climax. Yuri's moans were heightened before Kevin wrapped his arms around the young man's body and pulled him into a heavy kiss. The pair made out lustfully before Kevin let out a loud moan, which was quickly followed by a hearty grunt from Yuri. Hot, sticky fluids now filled their already soaked diapers. The two slowly began to catch their breath as Yuri moved to lay next to Kevin on the bed. "Whoa," Kevin said breathlessly as he turned to face Yuri. "That was awesome. Can we do more?" The taller boy nodded and gazed down at the 22-year-old in front of him, who seemed to be staring back at him with a needy expression. When Yuri was about to speak, Kevin suddenly moved closer and kissed him again. Yuri's eyes widened before he allowed himself to simply enjoy the ride. He immediately moved his hands to Kevin's backside and gave the boy's diaper a squeeze. When Kevin let out a desperate groan, Yuri gave his ass another sharp slap. "Such a naughty, needy boy," Yuri chuckled before spanking the boy again. Kevin took a sharp breath as he felt one of Yuri's hands slip into the back of the boy's diaper. The taller boy smirked as he noticed Kevin freeze and immediately moan upon Yuri pushing his fingers further down the boy's backside. He quickly found his target, the small hole of Kevin's sphincter. He gently prodded Kevin's hole with his finger, which jerked the boy to attention. Kevin's face was hilariously delirious with sexual energy as Yuri continued to poke his way through the tight muscle. Each tiny step deeper elicited a moan of "ah" from the ginger. Kevin soon had his arms wrapped around Yuri's neck as the bigger boy inserted 2 fingers. The scissoring motion of Yuri's digits made his friend's knees shake uncontrollably. "You've gotta relax, buddy," Yuri said, as he felt the young man tightening up even more around his fingers. The boy's heart raced as his workout buddy slowly but surely managed to open his rear entrance up. "You sure you want to do this?" Yuri asked. "Yes," Kevin firmly replied. Yuri pulled out his fingers and retrieved a condom from his bedstand while instructing Kevin to lie on his back. Pushing the front of the diaper down below his crotch, Yuri unrolled the rubber around his dick and pulled a bottle of lube from nearby. Kevin's eyes widened as the full length of his friend's penis pointed at his rear, and he began to feel a pressing motion through the diaper. Poking a hole through the back of Kevin's padding, the 23-year-old lined up just behind his friend and prodded the boy's anus. "Just breathe and push," Yuri calmly stated as he began to lean into Kevin. The young man let out a gasp as he felt the invading dick steadily force its way through his puckered hole. The girth of the cock caused Kevin to yelp as Yuri pushed further and further into his friend, and tears began to form in the corner of his eyelids. Yuri moaned as the tight and wet hole squeezed down on his penis, as if he were trying to suck him in. He continued to whisper for Kevin to breathe as he carefully began to move his dick in and out of the young man's bottom. "It's so big," Kevin struggled to say through his clenched teeth. Yuri added a few squirts of lube as he continued to push his crotch back and forth. The younger man let out a loud moan as his friend began picking up the pace and wrapped his arms around Yuri's back. The black man began pumping harder and harder into short strides, helping Kevin adjust to the pain that he was feeling. Hearing the young man's tearful whimpers turn into needy moans, Yuri began to slide further out and thrust it in harder. Moans of delight overtook the sounds of the creaking bed beneath them. "Fuck me harder," Kevin begged. Happy to oblige, Yuri slid his dick nearly all the way out before slamming it back inside of Kevin's hole. "Oh, fuck!" the young man cried as Yuri reamed his ass. The burly man watched as Kevin's head jerked backwards and his arms tightened around him. He gave the pale boy a kiss and pummeled his dick into Kevin before feeling the need to climax. "I'm gonna come," Yuri shouted. Kevin let out a wail of ecstasy as Yuri fucked him harder and harder until he let out a mighty groan. He could feel the hot and sticky seed pouring inside of him, leaving Yuri gasping for breath. The ginger returned the kiss and let out a whimper as Yuri pulled his dick out with an audible pop. Semen dripped from his hole and into the diaper, spilling slightly on his host's bed. Yuri got up from his position between Kevin's legs and laid down next to the man, pulling him into a hug. "How was that?" Yuri asked, as he felt Kevin snuggle into his chest. "Perfect," replied a breathless whisper. The two cuddled in bed for a few minutes before Yuri spoke up. "We ought to get cleaned up." Kevin nodded and carefully sat up, feeling the oozing liquids beginning to drip down from the backs of his thighs. Yuri led him into the bathroom where they both stepped inside and locked the door. He chuckled as Kevin untaped his diaper and stepped into the shower, waiting for Yuri to join him. "And here I thought you were trying to go after Lindsay," Yuri said, upon stepping in next to Kevin. "I was," came the reply. I've never actually done anything with a guy before." Yuri blinked in surprise. "Oh, well, you took it like a champ," the young man complimented. Kevin bit his lip and glanced at Yuri's face through the water streaming from the shower, head above. The man's dark eyes had a softness to them. The ginger realized that he had stumbled upon a part of himself that he didn't know existed. A part of him that needed a man at his side. When the pair finished their shower, Yuri and Kevin got dressed and drove to the campus dorms. The ride was awkwardly silent as the two bros fumbled at making conversation. "So, what does that make us?" Kevin asked. Yuri shrugged as they drove up to the parking lot. "It doesn't have to be anything if you don't want it to be. Plenty of people have friends with benefits." Kevin winced as he heard the words tumble into the car. "Just friends?" Unsure of what to say, the ginger sat in silence as they pulled up to his dorm. Yuri stopped the car at the curb, allowing his friend to safely step onto the pathway into the building. "So, see you on Wednesday?" Yuri clumsily mumbled. "Yeah, see you," returned Kevin. The two parted ways. As Kevin stepped into his room, he tried to ignore the hurt feelings that were threatening to bubble up. His roommate was thankfully asleep, allowing him to undress and flop into bed. "Friends with benefits, huh?" he thought while staring at the ceiling. "Just friends with benefits? Oh, so sad." I'm gonna get a little water real quick. I needed that. My throat is going. I don't know if you can tell, but my throat it's struggling to stay in there. I don't know why either. I didn't even do anything today. I didn't do any karaoke practice or anything yet today. I got a little more water. That said, though, we are almost done. What's it called? We have... No! Shoot. Dang it, hold on, I'm leaking a little bit. No! It's on the floor! Frick! Okay. Well, that's why I have a towel, okay? So that way if stuff like this happens, at least I'll be sitting on something that can hold all this. And besides, we're almost done. It won't be too much longer now. Just another thing to add to laundry, I guess. Oh, I should check Twitter, make sure nobody said anything. Let's see. Anybody use the hashtag? Fingers crossed. Latest. Nope, not yet. Someday though. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to our next chapter. Yes, we just have this chapter and the epilogue next. So, this is chapter 5. Yeah. There we go. Oh, wait. I meant this one. There we go. A few days had passed since Kevin and Yuri's sexual escapade, leaving Kevin with more questions than answers. As he tried to focus on schoolwork and preparations for his senior year, Kevin's mind continually wandered back to Yuri. The feeling of his arms around him, the smell of baby oil mixed with sweat, the sounds of crinkling plastic diapers. Kevin's pulse jumped as he remembered the desperate kisses and sensual fondling that they had shared together, making the young man's body feel tense and pent up. By the time the next workout session rolled around, Kevin was having to suppress himself from begging Yuri to take him back to bed. The 22-year-old tossed on an old workout shirt and his jogging shorts as he prepared to meet his friend at the gym, only to stop with a squeak with embarrassment as he took a final glance at the mirror. The erection tenting in his shorts was clearly obvious. Kevin tried to adjust himself to hide his boner, but it did little good. He took a few deep breaths and decided that the sudden blood flow would dissipate upon driving to the gym. When Kevin arrived at the corner gym, he was glad to see that Yuri had already changed into his workout clothes. The young man waved and grinned as Kevin jogged over towards him. "Took you long enough," Yuri cheerfully teased. "I thought you weren't going to show up." Sorry, Kevin stuttered awkwardly. The silence hung in the air before Yuri broke the tension. "You know, there's not many people here right now," the taller man noted. "We could go to the power cage and try some squats again." Kevin nodded and followed his friend to the weightlifting room. Lindsay's been making fun of us again, Yuri petulantly continued. "We have to show her that we can keep up with her. She even challenged us to try going on that marathon with her at the end of the year." When Kevin didn't reply, the older of the two frowned. He could tell that the ginger was hiding something behind his green eyes, but he had no clue as to what Kevin was wanting. "Is something wrong, Kevin?" Kevin looked down at his feet and bit his lip. It's fine," he lied. Yuri crossed his arms and asked, "Are you sure? You look stressed." Kevin shook his head and faked a smile. "It's nothing," he said before stepping into the power cage. "Let's get started." The ginger boy quickly lifted the metal bar hanging from the cage's rack and moved into position. "Take it easy, bro," Yuri warned, as Kevin haphazardly put the bar onto his shoulders. He took a step towards the student, who reacted by taking a nervous step backwards. A confused look flew across Yuri's face as he watched Kevin step away from him again, his face now tomato red. Just put on the smaller weights," Kevin stammered. "I think I can handle it." Shaking his head, Yuri picked up a set of weights and cautiously set them on the pole. Kevin carefully balanced the bar, seemingly unwilling to look at Yuri in the eyes. "I'll spot and you count," the 24-year-old said firmly. 1. Kevin squatted to the ground, trying not to feel overwhelmed by the weights. 2. Kevin continued, but his knees were struggling to stay upright. 3. The pressure and the stress of the weights caused Kevin to feel a wave of panic race through him. He squatted to the ground and huffed. 4. The pressure continued to build until he realized that he needed to use the bathroom. 5. Kevin took a haggard breath and gnashed his teeth together. His concentration was beginning to shift to his bladder, which was not acclimating to the stress. 6. Kevin was alarmed to feel a bit of urine spurt into his boxers. He tried to keep up with the squats, but he soon found himself unable to move his body without letting his bladder release. Noticing that his friend had stopped, Yuri had decided to intervene. Wait, stop! Unable to concentrate any more on the bar resting on his shoulders, the boy instinctively twisted his knees inwards. Forced to hold the bar and the weights, Kevin buckled under the pressure and watched in horror as his bladder gave away. A steady stream of pee spurted into his running shorts and onto the floor, splashing his ankles and sneakers with urine. Yuri quickly lifted the bar from Kevin's shoulders, but he was far too late. A yellow puddle pooled around the college student's feet, getting larger and larger as more dribbled down his shorts and onto the tile floor. Other gym-goers watched and gave disapproving frowns before turning back to their own machines. One of the employees shook his head and walked out of the room as Kevin failed to cover his now soaked clothes. The 22-year-old gave a frustrated wail as hot tears began to flow down his cheeks. Yuri had long since set the metal bar and weights back on the rack and tossed Kevin's towel underneath him. The younger man watched as the towel began to soak up some of the urine between his legs, a few drops still falling from his shorts. Kevin raced towards the locker room, feeling raw humiliation upon hearing disgusted murmurs and whispers. He slammed the door behind him and was about to start grabbing his things from the locker when a dark hand snatched him by the wrist. He turned to see Yuri gazing at him with sympathetic eyes. "Leave me alone," the ginger cried between a sob. "I can't do anything right." "What are you talking about?" "I can't do proper squats. I can't use the toilet like an adult. And I can't stop loving you." Yuri took a step back upon hearing the raw pain in Kevin's voice. He let go of the young man's arm and allowed him to give the locker a frustrated punch. The words echoed in Yuri's mind as Kevin's actions began to make more and more sense. Stuttering, the panicked steps away, the stress. It all came together. You love me?" Yuri asked quietly. Kevin lowered himself to the bench and nodded. His sobs were sending shudders down his body. Yuri paused and sat directly next to Kevin, wrapping his arms around the crying man's shoulders. The 20-year-olds were pulled together into a side hug. "I love you too, Kevin," Yuri whispered. I thought you didn't feel the same way." The younger boy turned and stared in disbelief at his partner with his large green eyes. I thought you just wanted us to be friends or fuck buddies or something." "Bro, I love you. I've loved you ever since Lindsay introduced us. I only said that we could be friends with benefits so you didn't feel pressured." Yuri grabbed Kevin's hand and stared at him dead in the eye. "Kevin Underwood, I want you to know that I love you and that I want to be your boyfriend. Understand?" The ginger wiped snot from his face and nodded. "I want you to say it," Yuri said firmly. "Do you understand?" "Yes, I understand." "Good. Now we're an item," Yuri replied as he roughly pulled the man to his chest for a full-on hug. Kevin weakly returned the embrace, still feeling the self-conscious about the soggy shorts around his midsection. "I need a change," a muffled voice said quietly. Yuri broke the hug and patted Kevin on the head, as if to say, "I've got you covered." The 23-year-old walked over to his gym locker and swung the small door open, retrieving a pair of basketball shorts and a diaper. Kevin shot him a withering look upon seeing the infantile design displayed across the front, but Yuri ignored his glares. "Do you want my help or not?" he asked. "Go rinse off and come back." Kevin hastily pulled off his clothes and soon returned with a mostly clean state. He was annoyed to find the diaper draped over the wooden bench with Yuri inviting him to lay down. After drying off, The young man reluctantly allowed the diaper to be put on. Yuri's borrowed shorts were a size too large, making the diaper seem more obvious as it barely clung to his waist. Kevin was about to complain when the two heard a knock at the door. "Excuse me," a voice said. "We have your towel." A glove-wearing employee opened the door and revealed a transparent plastic bag holding a urine-soaked cloth. Kevin hesitantly stood up and retrieved the bag, only for his shorts to slide down to his knees. The diaper could easily be seen as the fabric hit the ground, babyish colors and all. The employee averted his eyes as the young man snatched the shorts back up to his waist and hurriedly took the plastic bag. "Thank you, sorry," Kevin blurted before allowing the door to shut again. He let out a sheepish sigh, turning around to see Yuri covering his mouth to hide his amusement. Kevin pouted and sulked his way back into the car, holding up his droopy shorts with one hand and the wet towel in the other. He was utterly failing to keep his diaper out of view as he scrambled after Yuri. The scene was incredibly comical for the dark-skinned man who spent the entire walk laughing and lightly ribbing his new boyfriend. "I feel like such an idiot," complained Kevin. Now everyone there knows about the diapers." "Don't worry about it, Kev," Yuri reassured as he started the car. "Everyone knows that accidents happen." Goodness. Goodness gracious. Let's get to our last section then, okay? We are at our epilogue. I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Okay. "Come on, just two more." "Come on, just two more," Yuri loudly encouraged. Kevin gave a frustrated grunt as he felt his abs burning. Yuri held his workout partner's feet to the ground as the young man pulled his body into a sitting position, puffing and huffing the entire way. His legs shook warily as he completed the task and leaned forward with a groan. From Yuri's point of view at Kevin's feet, the diaper bulging between his crotch was obvious and almost poked out from the jogging shorts that already barely covered his thighs. "Great job," Yuri cheered as he high-fived his friend. "That marathon on Friday is going to be a piece of cake." The pair got up from the floor, allowing Kevin to catch his breath. He gave Yuri a swat on his own padded backside before picking up a yoga mat from the ground and adding it to the stack along the wall of the gym. The black man tossed his partner a towel and wrapped his arm around Kevin's waist before turning to face a wall of mirrors. The efforts of the past year clearly began to pay off for the students, as two sinewy and sweat-covered young men stared back at them. Their frequent exercise sessions, both in and out of the gym, had managed to build up Kevin's stamina to the point that he no longer had any trouble keeping up with Yuri. The 24-year-old laughed as he gave his boyfriend's backside a gentle squeeze. "You need a change," he chuckled as they walked to the locker room. "I'm not the only one," Kevin teased back, earning a bashful expression from Yuri. "At least I don't cry like a baby when I get changed in the locker room," he replied before swinging open the door and leading Kevin inside. The familiar tiled flooring and walls were still as reflective as ever, despite one of the lights in the back being out. Another pair of students were standing in front of the row of lockers, their hair wet from what must have been a recent shower. They talked about a recent sporting event on campus and didn't seem to pay any attention to the two newcomers. Kevin's heart started beating faster as Yuri led him to one of the wooden benches a few feet away, keeping his gaze on the floor. He was about to complain about having to change before others in the room, but was silenced when Yuri yanked his shorts down to his ankles. A soggy diaper with a cutesy animal design was neatly taped around his waist. It hung loosely around his crotch, incredibly close to leafing. The older of the two followed suit and revealed his own diaper, with a matching picture on the front. One of the bystanders stopped talking as he gazed at the two across from. One of the bystanders stopped talking as he gazed at the two from across the room, but the other person shrugged and continued the conversation. Kevin self-consciously pulled down the front of his shirt to cover his soaked padding, but that only made the part covering his backside more obvious to the pair. Yuri opened one of the lockers and pulled out a package of baby wipes, setting them on the bench while he closed the locker. Kevin felt his stomach drop as Yuri then untaped the diapers from themselves and quickly rolled them up to be disposed of. Taking one of the wipes, he cleaned himself up and took off the remaining clothes that clung to his body like a second skin. Yuri returned, cleaned himself up, and walked with Kevin into the showers. The shower head above had sprung to life as they pushed a button on the wall and felt the spray of lukewarm water spread over them. Yuri scrubbed Kevin's hair and back from behind, which earned a subconscious moan of approval. The shorter boy could feel his partner's erection forming in between the cheeks of his rear, and hissed as he started feeling it teasing towards his hole. Kevin was about to lean back for a kiss when the pair was interrupted by a person standing at the edge of the showers. One of the bystanders had walked into the showers to retrieve a forgotten towel, but quickly ran out of the room with his face aflame. Yuri and Kevin glanced at each other before bursting into laughter. The look of pure embarrassment on the stranger's face had killed the mood, but the couple knew that there would be plenty of time to get it on at home. The pair quickly finished their shower before drying off and heading back to the lockers, with the two strangers now evacuated. Yuri pulled another set of diapers from his locker and instructed Kevin to sit on the bench. He quickly taped up the ginger and allowed himself to be put into the remaining diaper. Loud crinkles could be heard as the two pulled on a change of clothes and walked out of the locker room with their things. They exited the gym and put their things into Yuri's car, now hot after being left in the summer sun all morning. Video game music began to play in the car's radio as Yuri backed out of his parking space and drove to their apartment. Kevin had chosen to become Yuri's roommate after the other friend graduated, allowing the pair to simplify a lot of their living situation. The days of carefully avoiding roommate suspicions and guarded secrets had been replaced with Yuri and Kevin openly walking around in diapers within their apartment. The action-packed films and graphic games on Yuri's bookshelf were slowly being outnumbered by a growing pile of G-rated movies and E-rated media. Kevin had been apprehensive about the childish treatment at first, but Yuri was convincing him more and more that coloring books and bats with rubber duckies were actually fairly fun. By the time the two arrived at home, Kevin was feeling the effects of their workout. The two men walked into their apartment and closed the door behind them, allowing them to forego their pants and relax in their padding. The 23-year-old let out an exhausted yawn and stretched his arms from side to side. "Sounds like someone needs a nap," Yuri murmured as he sprawled himself into the sofa. Kevin nodded and followed suit, allowing his boyfriend to hug him from behind. With their arms and legs intertwined, the young men closed their eyes. The pair's breathing slowed. The pair's breathing slowed as sleep began to overtake them, and Kevin let out another long yawn. Feeling the rising and falling of Yuri's chest at his back, Kevin quickly drifted to sleep, safely in his diapered boyfriend's arms. Yay! Yay! How is that? I hope that was good. That was understand. That was really fun. I had a lot of fun with that. It was exciting getting to read some silly stuff. Even this one was a lot more steamy than I'm normally used to reading. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And I don't know. It was really fun to read. Now, yeah, if you excuse me, I think I'm probably going to need to change at some point. Because I'm already leaked on the floor. I'd prefer not to do that more. Let me think. Before we go, anything else? Oh, tomorrow. I am still gonna try to stream. I don't know how successful I will be. I plan on doing another drawing, but I might. It might be later in the day, depending on how things go. I'll set something up on Twitter to let people know. Yeah. Let me think. Anything else? Oh, I did start doing this this little kind of video editing project, I guess, lately. It's just for fun. Like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do it for like every stream or anything. But I've been doing like these little highlight clips, and they're really fun. So if you do go check out YouTube, where all my streams are, maybe give those a look too. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for having a lot of fun with me. I gotta go, because I just soaked this towel too. Great. So I will see you next time. Have a great day. And I think anything else? Not really. Out. I will see you around. Have a good one. Bye bye. See you. Can't even find my ending streak. There we go. Bye, guys.